Greetings once again, this is Chad bringing you another tech review of my experience with modern handhelds that perform retro emulation. This review is for my custom do-it-yourself Odroid Go Advance, and I say custom because this is not your typical OGA handheld. I pre-ordered this back in January of 2020, and due to some unforeseen issues from Ameridroid's parts supplier, I didn't end up receiving it until the middle of August later that year. Since then, I've given it a custom makeover to resemble the Japanese Super Famicom, and become thoroughly familiar with its functionality and how to make best use of its hardware. Speaking of hardware, since this is a do-it-yourself kit, the parts come packaged in the Odroid box with detailed instructions on how to assemble it. These are the components that come in box with the original Odroid Go Advance that you assemble. And these are the components that come with the upgraded Black 2nd Edition. Once they're fully assembled, they'll look like this. I have to say, I'm not really a fan of the black enclosure from the 2nd edition. I really liked the idea of giving mine a custom paint job, and that can only safely be done with a clear case and painting it from the inside. Once everything arrived, I laid it all out and started getting to work. I masked off the external portion of the enclosure with blue painter's tape so to ensure that no paint got on the outside of the case. Then, in a well-ventilated area, I used a polycarbonate white paint to spray the inside of the case, waited 8 hours for it to dry, and then was all set to start assembling my Odroid Go Advance. EMU Elec, or MU Elec, is Linux-based software that powers Emulation Station, which runs with RetroArch on the Odroid Go Advance. There's currently no software that successfully records the screen on the OGA device, so I'll be recording this the old-fashioned way. As you add more games to each emulator, new consoles are added to the Emulation Station menu, and these are just a few that I run on mine. The games are well responsive, smooth, and I have to say, this was the first time that I ran numerous SNES ROMs at full speed with no lag whatsoever. On the top, we have the L1 and R1 shoulder buttons, along with the newly added L2 and R2 shoulder buttons. Another new feature on the 2nd edition is the USB-C port. We have an 1/8 inch auxiliary port for headphones, a standard USB 2.0 port, one power button, and an internal wireless chip mounted on the main board. In terms of form factor, this is a side-by-side comparison with my PSP Slim. And as you can see, the OGA is very slim and easy to take places. I will say I'm definitely against the analog joystick design. Its plastic and rigid edges is rough on the finger. It also stands much taller than the PSP design, which is practically flush with the handheld, with better texture to prevent blistering from extended gameplay. I also don't like that there's no physical volume buttons on the OGA. In order to adjust the volume, you have to go into RetroArch and adjust it there, or set up a hotkey, neither of which is practical. Another negative aspect is the way the micro SD card is exposed while plugged in. There is no door or other housing that closes around it. This makes it very uncomfortable for my finger, as it so inconveniently fits right down into the SD's port area. Changing the way I've held mobile consoles in my hands for the last 30 plus years, is not going to be easy, and I don't intend to start now. I will add that the SD card does lock in very well to its port, so it's really more of a discomfort thing than anything else. The overall plastic of the handheld feels very cheap in your hands, which is yet again another reason why I like to wear gloves while playing it. On a positive note with the OGA is the lithium-ion battery that is housed inside the enclosure. The battery life on this handheld is phenomenal. What you're currently seeing here is after 2 hours of gameplay, and 3 weeks of being powered down with no charge. I can easily get 10 hours of gameplay out of this device before needing to recharge it. As far as my final thoughts regarding the Odroid Go Advance, it really is a decent little handheld. But even with the pros versus cons, I would not say this is worth the $75 that I paid for it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad purchase for someone else. It's just not what I would reach for first when playing retro games on a portable device. It's enjoyable having a do-it-yourself handheld, but it's also taxing to try and get some of them up and running, since you also have to install the operating system, as well as jumping through a couple of extra hoops in order to copy the ROMs over. A simple drag and drop feature would have been much simpler. Well, that about wraps up this review of mine with the Odroid Go Advance, and stay tuned as I rate my other remaining handheld with a review of the Retroid Pocket 2. Stay good to yourselves and each other. Thanks for watching.